Hello and welcome to the Honeypot Podcast. Nowadays we're going to try to do this in English, or maybe we should say Swinglish. I'm Fredrik Heghammar, and with me I have
Alexander Wennerberg.
Welcome. So today, Alexander, we're going to talk about a topic that is close to our hearts. We're going to talk about how to involve the frontline workforce.
That's a great topic. I'm really happy to be back. Actually, it's been a while. We, as you mentioned, we were having this podcast in Swedish before, and we're since then we've been working a lot outside of Sweden as well, in UK and Germany and down in a few different countries around Europe. So we thought that maybe it was time to start in English this time. We'll see how much Swinglish it gets.
I think they can live with it. I mean, it's about sharing knowledge, and this is how we can do it.
Wonderful.
Talking about the frontline workforce, we came across an article about TechCrunch about during the pandemic. It was obvious figures, or on black and white, I should say, showed that a lot of people in the frontline workforce, like factory workers, hospital nurses, and so on, cleaners, and so on, are lacking the IT infrastructure to make themselves heard in an organization.
Yep.
And the article stated that they estimated to 2.7 billion workers, which is quite a lot. And knowing the importance of involving different perspectives when it comes to continuous improvements, innovation, or whatever progress you're looking for is crucial. And we know that because we build a tool where we can help people to get involved. And it's kind of shocking to hear that no one is taking care of all these frontline workers, because in the end, they are the one that has, the closest to the customer or on in context data, sort of. And we are always talking about getting your own data. And I think this is the best place to gather that data. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So what are your opinions on this?
I think that it really comes down to this situation where, at its core, I would say that how companies are making decisions about change. We know that change is coming, no matter we want it or not. How companies and leaderships and management teams are making decisions. I think that's about to, it needs to be changed a little bit in the way that, as you were mentioning, when it comes to data and getting data in context around what kind of information you need to make accurate decisions. I think that one of the biggest problems that many organizations or companies are facing today is that they are using reports, trend studies, research in different formats that are bringing them data and information that's not necessarily related and accurate in their organization. So I think that one of the biggest challenges out there is that we know that most of the organizations that we talk to have a lot of knowledge inside of the organizations already, meaning that all of the employees, no matter if it's a distributed workforce and frontline workforce or any other kind of workforce, they have so much insights, knowledge, ideas, solutions, needs, and information they can give the leadership team that can help them make accurate decisions about different challenges, opportunities, and problems that they're facing. So I thought it was a great first and foremost, just a really great thing to bring up from TechCrunch, talking more about.
Yeah, and they of course angle it as it's a big opportunity for tech companies to take care of this, of course, because the blue collar section or the frontline workforce has been neglected for a long time, and major tech players are only focusing on white collar audience. I mean, that has a computer in front of them, are connected, and so on. This is just talking about the West world and so on, and we have other countries where there's another infrastructure to talk about, like connection and Wi-Fi and so on.
But how do you think? Why do you think it's become such a gap between like the office workers and the distributed workforce or frontline workforce out there? How come most companies haven't been tapping into that data, that information, and that engagement before?
Unfortunately, I think it has to do with, old hierarchies and also, different levels on who's making decision and who's doing the job. And to me, it's ridiculous, of course, because, you're a team, and it's usually not the people that come up with the idea that's going to execute it. It's other people that's going to execute it. But then also the frontline workers, historically, it's been a fairly vocal audience that, they might, make their voices heard when it's too late almost. And then when they do like rallies, when they get together and they stop working and stuff like that. And I think that's unnecessary today when you have this infrastructure. Apparently they are lacking it, but if someone like us is helping them to get their voice heard, you could avoid this big, showstoppers in a negative way, not a showstopper in a good way, but to make people heard and then utilize their voices to make continuous improvements, because I think that's where this kind of a tool like Hives could help them shine, because who know better than the people that are doing the job?
Definitely. And what do you think that, if we would break it down to the possible consequences and how it's affecting organizations, at least from my point of view, the challenges behind many of these, as I mentioned before, many of these kind of decisions that are made in a lot of organizations out there are that they are not really anchored in data that is purely like related and in context to our organization. Coming from having been working with I don't know how many industries you've been working with during the years, Fredrik, and so many different kind of companies and organizations out there. What do you see are what are the common pitfalls or problems that usually occurs when you're not succeeding in involving the voices of the frontline workforce?
First of all, of course, they don't feel valued, and they feel unheard. That means that they get assigned to do tasks that they think is like pointless because they haven't been a part of making the decision, and the people up there makes decisions for you, and they don't have a clue on the implications of that task, and that creates resilience. People they don't want to do it. They get, I'm generalizing here now a bit, of course, but if you don't feel like being a part of it, you become resilient, and you are slowing down, and you're not performing the way that you should, because you feel like, why should I? These people are stupid. They don't know about what we're doing. And in the long run, it could also have like health implications if people are doing things wrong and stuff like that. So it gets so many levels of bad things that could happen if you don't listen to them, and kind of sometimes it's just enough to listen to them as well. Maybe they don't have the best solutions either, just because they're the frontline workforces, but usually they have, because they know how to do the job. But sometimes having a discussion, involving them, and to get to a joint vision or decision about something is also good, because you can't always have right, of course. But I would say it's reflecting the performance a lot, I would say, in the end. And we talk about people here, so it's not strange, but the performance and the outcome is suffering from an organization where it's gotten a lack of transparency and involvement. That's just a fact.
So there's a lot of organizations out there also, at least from all the companies and organizations I'm talking to each and every week here, that really wants to get started with this, who wants to set themselves up to a situation where they really can listen to the frontline in their organization, where they can capture the input and ideas and insights and feedback that they need to make more accurate decisions. There's a few different things that we usually are talking about when it comes to getting started. Would you say that there's, let's say for an organization that have not been able to capture that kind of input before, would you say that there are any specific things that they should think of when it comes to like getting started or finding a solution or finding a tool or setup to make this work?
I think, generally I would say, like, if you ask a specific things, you get better answers to that specific questions, of course. Because what could happen if you have a large organization where you haven't listened to the frontline workers before, when you are opening up to that, if you're not asking the right questions, it probably will end up being just complaints about things. And that's we want to avoid that. We want to have constructive inputs, ideas, insights from this audience. And to get that, you have to make sure that you ask the right questions. And then it's also super important to have a transparency in it, that if someone contributes, they need to be able to see that and follow that. And, my idea or my insight is taken care of. It's considered, it's turned down, it gotta go, it gotta know, or it's parked, or whatever, whatever input you can give to the contributor, I think is key. And that means also that if you want to create this community in your organization where people are contributing, you have to make sure that someone is there to take care of it, because the better it gets, the more content you get. That's, the upside and the backside, because it can lead to more work, but the work it leads to is necessary, and it's really important for the organization.
Yeah, and there's usually also something I often bring up with organizations when we're discussing this, is that on specifically on how to get started and what the possible challenges and opportunities and advantages are, is that, as you were saying, coming from a situation where, some organizations have a super structured process or a methodology to work with all of this, most of organizations don't have. And maybe they're thinking of like some of them are thinking about like the classical, suggestion box or idea box in some kind of way. Coming to what you said, Fredrik, that you should start from having like framing the challenges or opportunities or problems that you want to capture ideas for. I think that's key, because if you just go out to the organization and say like, hey, come up with your best suggestions for improvements about anything, you'll get some ideas about that we should start building flying cars. The next idea will be that we should move that blue cabin in the conference room 2 meters to the right because it would be better off there. And it would be pretty much impossible to manage that. If you instead start from the different like goals and challenges and strategic goals or strategy or opportunities that you have as a company or as a department, if you start from them, frame them as questions on how you can improve on that or how you can find solutions for that, you will automatically have a receiver of the idea or solution. So you don't really have to find a new structure in the organization. You automatically have a receiver of the solution.
Absolutely. And I think, having a suggestion box, a digital version of it, is better than nothing, if you ask me.
Definitely, yeah.
But it's my experience is that I'm a typically a person who would contribute, because that's in my DNA. And I've been working when I worked in the aircraft industry before, that's what I did all day long, sending in contributions on how to make something faster or more secure or whatever. But it relies on the intrapreneurs in the company. And people, that's kind of people like me. We are used to make our voices heard anyway, sort of. That's in our DNA. We want to be a part of creating something. And that's good. But the rest of the people, once again, I generalize now, they're not doing it. And if they do it, it probably is going to be a complaint about something.
But that's so interesting because we've read a lot of, maybe that's a separate episode actually, but just really quickly, we read a lot about interesting studies about that as well, that one of the main keys to open up for creativity and engagement is to give people framing. You have an expression for boxes, exactly. You have a box. How would you even be able to think outside of the box if you don't have a box?
Exactly.
And I think that's a part of it. If you make it too wide, a lot of the people who naturally are not like contributing, they will often feel insecure when it comes to those kind
of course, but
situations.
Asking them, how could we make step 2 in the packaging process more efficient?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then you get the real ideas, in context.
Yeah, you will probably get engagement from
step.
people who wouldn't like go to their manager and tap them on the shoulder and make their voice heard.
Yeah.
And like in other situations, yeah.
And then, of course, some organization requires some incentives for the contributors. But I mean, our data, I would say, the Hives data we have shows that you don't have to give away money or days off or whatever. Being transparent and including is enough, because in the end, and that's also something this article states, that having the right technology or tool will give the frontline workers a voice, of course, and help out with the continuous improvements and feel valued and being a part of the organization and part of the team. And I think that's the important thing. And this leads to, this is the research that the article has been doing, that the engagement increase and it reduce also staff leaving because they feel valued and a part of the organization. And that could also, in the long term, attract people that want to be a part of a culture like that. So exactly. It's a really important thing. But we also know by experience that it also comes down to money and budgets, of course, because take Microsoft Office or Teams 365, a license for every employee is very expensive. Yeah. So that's why you have to find tools that allow people without this fancy 365 account to be a part of this, and that's what we're trying to do at Hives. And we have one client that I don't know how many the percentage of the employees that has Office 365 and or not.
I think it's around 30 to 40% of their employees who have access to Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, and also just to mention that the Honeypot podcast will go through different themes and topics of the day, but we will also be very specific on a feature we have in our tool called Workflow, where you can set up different processes, workflows. You can mimic existing processes or tools that you have to involve different audiences, and we wanted to share how you can work with these workflows to achieve results. And today we said, let's talk a little bit about our client Halfords. Of course, without giving away any secret stuff they're doing and how they are turn this into business. Yeah. But still, on a high level, take you through a little bit how they work with this in an organization where the frontline workforce don't have the right infrastructure, if we say so, without mentioning any brands.
Yeah. All right, so time to have a walkthrough of this episode's workflow then. As Fredrik mentioned, we're trying to bring up a few trends, news, insights that are regular or relevant to the industry we are present in, and of course to our clients and audience with some questions and thoughts as well. This week's workflow, this episode's workflow, will focusing on continuous improvement, which is something that is widely used within Hives.co and our clients. Those of you, just a short introduction for those of you who are not working with continuous improvement, what that means and what's that made for is to be able to find within your organization different kind of improvements, suggestions, ideas, solutions that can, as it's named, improve the organization continuously. And this specific example and workflow that we will have a walkthrough of today contains of eight steps, you can say, and I'll just walk them through, give a short explanation on each and every step, and give you some a practical tip as well on what to think about in each and every step here as well. So first and foremost, step one is of course capturing the ideas and suggestions. We've been talking in this episode a lot about how to engage the frontline workforce, a distributed workforce, and the people not sitting in front of a computer. I would say when it comes to continuous improvement, that's pretty much a key here, because what we want here is to find the specific ideas or suggestions or improvements that are out there that we maybe can see when we're sitting at the office or in front of a computer out there in stores, in factories, and so on and so on. And the first step when it comes to capturing ideas and suggestions is, of course, inviting people to engage. And when it comes to this, simplicity is really like the key here. So I wouldn't say that there's really any need for like complex forms or like long lists of requirements in this case. In this case, it's about going for quantity in order to find quality later on in the process.
So it's more like what we call the post-it mode, right?
Yeah, definitely. So when you're capturing ideas and suggestions, think of it like easy to use, easy to engage, definitely. And just like from a practical point of view, I would definitely recommend you to set up some kind of form. You can use Hives as the system for capturing all of this and go through the workflow. But let people in with their regular credentials. If they have an employee ID or if they can scan a QR code, that's a very easy way to make sure that they can submit a form where with their ideas and suggestions. Yep. As well. Step number 2 is, of course, what we earlier mentioned. It's a review or step where we have been taking care of the ideas. We've seen the ideas. We've assigned the ideas to someone who should review the idea itself as a step number 2. The reason we're doing this is to make sure that we have a transparency and that we are showing people that have been taking care of a few ideas and which ideas we're taking care of as well. And practical tip here is just to keep it as transparent as possible when you're doing this. So if you can get engagement between employees as well, that's great.
Usually, if I may add to it, the first step in this case, in this workflow, is open to all employees.
Yes, exactly.
And the second step is just for the managers in this case.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when you're opening up for ideas and suggestions in the first step, you're opening up to all employees. In this case, you can tailor it so you can have different kind of collections or collecting based on department or geography and so on as well, of course. And then, as you said, Fredrik, step number 2 on the reviews for the managers. They're taking care of the ideas. Step number 3 is much a discovery stage, which means that when we have decided to move further with a few different ideas, usually we need to discover a few things or add some information or data on those ideas. It could be that we need to answer who should be responsible for this idea, what's the possible budget for this idea, what's the time frame, who's affected of implementing this idea, and so on. So a few questions that matches your organization's needs to be able to understand the information you need to, or the data your decision makers need to have to be able to make a decision on an idea or a suggestion for improvement here. Step number 4 is a work in progress step. It's marking ideas that we are about to do or are doing right now, ideas that we want to realize, that we want to show that this is being worked on right now. We plan to realize or implement this idea at this specific time point or so on, and still keep it as transparent as possible, and try to have regular updates as well on this to maintain the momentum as well across the organization, of course. And then, of course, as we are talking about often is that ideas are so much about timing, and step number 5 is a reserve step. Which means that if you have ideas that you think are great for the organization, but they can't be done right now, maybe they are great in the future, maybe it's because some technical thing stopping us from doing it now, or anything else. This is a step where you pretty much are putting the ideas that you want to pursue, but you can't do it right now, so to speak. So just to save them, and that's also something I wanna having said here is that when it comes to ideas and the timing of ideas, I don't think that an idea, or maybe sometimes, but an idea ever should get a hard no, meaning that it's way better to have a reserve step or a parked for now step, which actually is the next step number 6, where we have a step where we are putting ideas that are getting, let's say, a no for now or parked for now, which makes them transparent and findable in the future as well.
And I agree with you. In the system, now we're specifically talking about hives.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you call that step. It can be it can be parked for now, whatever. Everything is searchable in the tool anyway. So it's just for, let's say, like psychologically for the contributor to see if it's a no or if it's parked for now. I think parked for now is more psychologically good than a no. As you said, it's all about timing.
Yeah, exactly, and because of that fact, it's a part of the engagement as well. Not trying to communicate a no as a big red denied stamp. If you can communicate it as like parked or parked for now or no for now, that will usually keep the engagement up among the organization as well.
And also, as you mentioned, we made it easy for the contributors to contribute. They can go to a link if they have a browser in the phone or computer or iPad or whatever. They can scan a QR code with their phone if they have a phone, or they can email directly to the collection. We call it collections, every collection will get a unique code. But at this specific client, Halfords, they are using their employee number to verify their contribution, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's also a thing in many organizations across manufacturing industries, retail industries, and so on. A lot of the employees, as you mentioned before, Fredrik, does not have let's say, a Microsoft license or any other software license in that case. But what most employees have always is some kind of idea to sign into like a payroll system or software or anything else in the company. And if you're using Hives as the software to engage your organization, you can use any kind of access point, which means that we can map it towards your employee ideas, as you mentioned. We can map it to payroll ideas, we can map it to email addresses, and so on and so on. So everyone will get access without any kind of friction when it comes to this. And that's a really important part, because as soon as there are friction created, you'll lose a part of the engagement. And
correct me if I'm wrong, Halfords, they're using like the CAS register too. They can use the CAS register, right, to contribute.
Exactly, they can use pretty much any kind of screen where they can embed.
But those have a screen, so they can. Yeah. So the employee doesn't need to have a phone or anything. So that's really important.
They can reach it through their regular like working stations and so on.
Cool.
And then just like the two last steps, step number 7 and step number 8 in the continuous improvement process here is a implemented process or implemented step. Sorry, this is just to show which ideas have we implemented or realized in our organization, to show and recognize that as well. A part of that is to bring up that point again, is that monetary incentives are not the strongest incentives from what we've seen very clearly. The biggest or the most valuable incentives here is transparency and recognition. So if you keep it transparent and if you try to recognize the people submitting ideas that are being implemented, that will in its turn create the engagement itself. And then just the last like extra step that can be useful as well. It's a step where we are placing everything that we that have been submitted, but we already have. So things we already have or functionality that's already here.
Okay,
and the reason
so,
behind
yeah.
that is that if you are suggesting something and I as a manager can see that, all right, so this is a great suggestion, but we already have that. That's also a sign that we maybe not have communicated that we have that.
Yeah, and then also, used to say that great minds think alike. So if you are 1,000 employees, there's most likely that you get a suggestion of the same things, same ideas.
Yeah, exactly. But just to recap this very, very quickly, the continuous improvement workflow in Hives, the keys here is to be able to engage people in an easy way, keep a low threshold in the beginning so people can engage and submit and share their ideas, and then have a process that makes it possible for us to qualify, narrow down until we can make decisions based on the right ideas, and communicate and recognize those ideas and the people submitting those ideas as well back to the organization. That's the keys here.
Absolutely. And not only are you getting suggestions and ideas and insights, but you also make the frontline workers' voice heard, and you help them feel like they are part of the team. And this will increase engagement and decrease staff turnover in the end. So,
and imagine you as a manager or a leader in your company as well. Imagine if you could, on the challenges you're working on or the goals you're striving to reach for this year or for the next period in your organization. Imagine if you could get input from people who are sitting with these challenges in their daily work and give you the right data to make accurate decisions to improve on that. That's such a wonderful
sounds like heaven
force. Definitely.
So we are planning not to make this podcast too long. So I think that will be it for today.
Yes.
About the frontline workforce, you can Google TechCrunch and frontline workforce to read the article if you want to see it. We'll be back in near future with a new episode, a new topic, and a new workflow. And in the meantime, if you have any suggestions or questions or challenges that you want us to address in this podcast, please send an email to Fredrik@hives.co or Alexander@hives.co, and we will go through your request in the podcast.
Yes, we will. Great. Thank you very much for this episode, and have a nice week until the next one.
Yes. Cheers.
Bye-bye.